MZTV.
If you want to watch a great rock and roll documentary, for those rock and roll aficionados out there, I recommend a documentary you can find on YouTube called Beware of Mr. Baker. Beware of Mr. Baker. It's a documentary about Ginger Baker, the drummer of the first supergroup Cream back in the mid-60s. Their farewell concert was at the Albert Hall in 1968. Some would say, Martin, how is this edifying? Well, I think it's edifying. It's not maybe spiritually edifying, but in a way it is, because it just shows this abandon, and in Ginger's case it was reckless abandon, but giving oneself over to a cause, to a truth. And for Ginger, that truth was rock and roll. To us, it's a much higher cause. I'll put the trailer down here. Beware of Mr. Baker. Watch the trailer, see what you think, and get back with me on that. So, apart from that, I'm going to talk to you today about what Paul does against his chicken. Now, possibly there's never been a spiritual video by this title, What Paul Does with His Chicken, and I'm going to introduce to you why I say that. It's the old chicken with the head cut off. I've used that analogy several times in this series. You know that when you I've never cut a chicken's head off. I would never do that. I eat chicken. I leave the dirty work to other people. So it's not that I'm against it. I don't like it. I don't know. That's how they kill them. I don't even care. Don't want to know. It's just like, just serve it with mashed potatoes. Anyway, when a chicken's head is cut off, for some reason, the body still runs around for a little bit. And I use that analogy to explain why, after Christ has given a death blow to sin, and he has crucified the old humanity with Christ, why do we still sin? Well, our bodies have yet to be delivered, right? We're awaiting the change of our bodies, that our bodies may be delivered from this sin and death. We're awaiting that with patience, Romans chapter 8. So it's evidence. I don't even need to explain it in detail that our bodies are still touring the barnyard, even though the head is gone. The head is gone. The power of it, the guilt of it has been done away with. But this crazy thing still running around doing crazy things in the barnyard. So I'm going to talk about how Paul deals with that, how Paul battles his chicken, what Paul does against his chicken, how Paul battles his chicken. That might be a better title, what he does against his chicken. We'll see what I decide to call this. To begin, I'm going to go to Colossians chapter 3. This is a very delicate topic. I don't know anybody else who would take on this topic, because it's extremely delicate, because we're talking about the middle voice in the Greek. And it is very little understood, because it is a nuance, a fine nuance. You're going to see that here. All right, I'm going to start in chapter 3, verse 1. If then you were roused together with Christ, be seeking that which is above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. This is the key to everything. Be disposed to that which is above, not to that on the earth. Now see, this is where the tricky thing comes in. Be disposed to that which is above, not that which is on earth. We're not to be aligned with it, down with it, walking according to it, paying attention to its screaming lunatic accusations. For you died. There's the reason you died. Paul's very bold here. You died, and your life is hid together with Christ in God. Whenever Christ, our life, should be manifested, then you also shall be manifested together with him in glory. Great promise, great thing that's about to happen to us, if you can believe that. Stay cool. I don't know. It's hard to maintain your cool in these times. I guess it's better. We don't really know the details of what's coming up. We know that we're going to be changed while we're alive. We know that we're going to meet Christ in the air, but which is fantastic enough. It's all we can do to handle even thinking about that. It's going to be more glorious than we can ever imagine. So it's been hidden from us, the actual glories. Paul actually went to the third heaven, saw them, came down, had to be humbled. I'm good, just the way I am. Don't want to go to the third heaven until I'm immortal. But here's the thing. In verse 5, here's the tricky part. Paul says, Deaden then your members that are on the earth, prostitution, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and greed, which is idolatry, idolatry, because of which the indignation of God is coming on the sons of stubbornness, among whom you also once walked when you lived in these things. Yet now you also be putting away all these: anger, fury, malice, and so on and so forth. Now, deaden then. The then refers to what went before, which is you died, you were roused together with Christ. This is all figure of speech known as prolepsis. We didn't really die with Christ, but we were so considered to have died with Christ and roused with Christ that it's put as a fact. We weren't roused together with Christ, but Paul's stating it as though we were. Be seeking that which is above. Deaden then. And this is what Paul's saying. As long as this has happened, as long as what I'm telling you, these high truths that your old humanity was crucified, you are roused together with Christ, I want you to be seeking that which is above where Christ is. As long as that's true, you might as well then deaden the chicken. You might as well then just kind of be aware that your chicken is still running around, and deaden the chicken. Deaden your members that are on the earth. This is strange because Paul just says, be disposed to that which is above, not to that on the earth. Then he says, deaden then your members that are on the earth. Who else would take this on? Because it seems like a contradiction, but it's not. It's the middle form of a verb. We're going to see that with the verb putting away in verse 8. Gonna get there. So to deaden, it's another form of not paying attention to it. Remember I told you to crucify the flesh? That is, whenever your flesh raises up after you've done something, nail it to the cross and let it die of starvation. That is, let it die of not being attended to by you. Don't fuel it. Don't feed it. Don't water it. So we're to deaden these things as we're watching our chicken without the head tour the barnyard. We're supposed to deaden. We're supposed to not get excited about it, not get worried about it. But Paul is still kind of saying in a light way, he can't say, don't do this. He can't, because that's the law of Moses. That doesn't work. Paul can't say, don't practice prostitution, don't be unclean, don't be. He just says, deaden these things that exist, these things you once were, and maybe some of you are still dabbling in it. Deaden these things. Paul doesn't want them to be doing these things, but he knows that law doesn't work. And he just announced that you're not supposed to pay attention to things on the earth. So it's a very, but at the same time, you can't tell these people to do these things. You can't tell them to pursue prostitution, uncleanness, passion, evil, desire, and greed. You can't tell them to do that. Some of them are doing it. Some of us may be doing it. But the frontal attack doesn't work. So Paul's sneaking in the back door. Well, after having declared that these things are no longer a source of occupation, no longer a source of angst, guilt, or shame. So we're dealing with the chicken right now. We're dealing with the chicken. So these things that are still happening, deaden them, just kind of, I'm almost tempted to say try not to do them, but I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying let this thing that Christ has done for you happen with this stuff that you're doing. Deaden then. See, it's based on the truth that went before. Deaden then. You can't just say, deaden your members that are on the earth. See, that's wrong. That's what Christians would do. Deaden your members that are on the earth. That's what they do. But the fact that the word then is here, deaden then, as a result of what I just said, let these things go away. Let them go away. You can't make them go away because you're helpless against them. They're not going to go away on their own. I mean, the chicken that's devitalized is not going to go away on its own. So it's almost the thought of let this occur. Let this occur. I'm going to get to that. You're going to see that in the middle voice. I told you this was subtle. Then your members that are on the earth, prostitution, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and greed, which is idolatry, because of which the indignation of God is coming on the sons of stubbornness. It's not, the indignation of God is not coming upon us. even if we do these things. That's the beauty. Because of which, Paul could say, the indignation of God is coming upon you, so stop doing them. Nope. Doesn't say that, because the indignation of God is not coming on the Corinthians, no matter if they are dabbling in prostitution, uncleanness, passion, evil, desire, and greed, idolatry, because of which the indignation of God is coming upon the sons of stubbornness. Not you. You might be doing them, but the indignation of God is coming upon the sons of stubbornness, among whom you also once walked when you lived in these things. If they're no longer doing these things, why is Paul bringing it up? Deaden then your members then that are on the earth. They are still doing these things, but he says they're no longer living in these things. Such subtle language, you got to pay attention to every word. Among whom you also once walked, these sons of stubbornness who are going to be tasting the indignation of God during the tribulation, when you lived in these things. See, they're no longer living in these things. Were they living? Well, they were roused together with Christ, so they're living among the celestials. Not actually, but proleptically, in their realization of what Christ will soon do. Be seeking that which is above, that's where they're living now, even while the chicken is touring the barnyard. So a key word is then. I tell you, in verse 5 of Colossians 3, if you take out the word then, you're back to the law of Moses. Deaden your members on the earth. Thou shalt not dabble in prostitution, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, greed, and so forth. That doesn't work. Christians are still taking the frontal attack. When you see the word then, you must go back to what just went before. And I'm not going to read it again, even though it's so great. Colossians chapter 3, verses 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yet now you also be putting away all these. You see how careful Paul is being? People get upset, and people have said to me over the years, Paul is still giving exhortations. Why is he doing that? It seems like Paul is bringing the nations into the law of Moses. He's giving them rules and regulations. I'm nervous, people tell me, when Paul says things like this. That's why I'm taking on these verses, and I'm showing you that it's not inconsistent with what Paul has said because of the language he is using. He's very delicate here because these people are still doing some of this crapola. So he says, now you also be putting away all these. Put them away. Very delicate language. It doesn't say stop doing it. So put them away. Like put them away. Just deaden them. Let them die. And the word putting is in the middle voice. This is key. I'm going to read the rest of the passage, then get to that middle voice. I know this is not a very sexy video, is it? Well, except for me. I got my shirt unbuttoned there. But other than that, this is not a sexy video. This isn't what you would call exciting truth. But this is necessary truth because these verses have tripped up many people. You also be putting away all these, anger, fury, malice, calumny. Calumny is a fancy concordant word for blasphemy, false testimony against someone, obscenity out of your mouth. And by the way, putting obscenity out of your mouth, Paul says, let no unclean thing come out of your mouth. An obscenity is not goddamn or the S word or the F word. Obscenity is something which would debilitate or tear somebody down. An obscenity, let's just look that word up. This is one of those live Bible studies, always taking a chance here. Not really, because I know what it doesn't mean. Taking the Lord's name in vain is not saying goddamn or Jesus Christ. It's taking his name upon you as Christians do, but in vain. That is to no effect. They're carrying the name Christ in that they call themselves Christians, but they're worshiping a false Christ. They're worshiping a different Jesus, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 11, or is it 12? Never can get that straight. One of them's right, 11, 12. So, Ironically, Christians who may never say the F word or goddamn or Jesus Christ, they're taking his name in vain every day, because by them calling themselves Christians, it's not going to matter one bit when Christ returns, because he's going to say to them, "Depart from me, workers of lawlessness, I never knew you." So they've taken his name in vain. How ironic. And here's me, once in a while, I throw in, just because it's in me, because I'm not afraid of it, I throw in a, Jesus Christ, why is this concordant version so difficult to read sometimes? What? What? I'm calling upon Jesus Christ. There's nothing wrong with it. Or, goddamn, this paper of the concordant Bible, because it's so thin and it tears easily. I mean, this is not taking the Lord's name in vain. So what was I going to look up? Obscenity. Now let's see what an obscenity is. Paul says, let your words edify. Let your words be edifying. Build people up. That's what he says in the context where he says, let no unclean thing come out of your mouth. Let your words build up. I can tear somebody down without using a 4-letter word. I can tear somebody down and never use a 4-letter word. Oh yeah. You know what? You're a terrible person. I regret the day you were born. You are worthless, and you should just remove yourself from polite society because you're a scourge on the human race. Ooh, that was not very edifying. I tore someone down, never used a curse word, so-called, never used a 4-letter word. On the other hand, I can use 4-letter words left and right and compliment the hell out of you. There, I just did it. Like, you did one fucking great job on that project. You're a badass MFer. You know, you are the shit. You're the bomb. You just knocked the shit out of that project. Great job. See, I'm using all these 4-letter words, but I'm building you up, so the words don't matter. For the love of God, the words don't matter. What am I looking up? Obscene. Obscenity. Vile, say. Vile, say. Yeah, exactly. Vile, say. I just said vile things without using a 4-letter word. So it's the intent behind it. It's the evil behind what you're saying. Nothing to do with the words themselves. All right, put obscenity out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another. Stripping off the old. That's also in the middle voice. Love it. Stripping off the old humanity together with its practices. Putting on the young. Putting is also in the middle voice, which is being renewed into recognition in accord with the image of the one who creates it. Wherein. Oh, this is so good. Why? I wish I could do a 45-minute show. I wish, but it will take too long to download. Takes too long to upload. People see 45 minutes. They freak out. I got to keep it short. But people say, you don't tell people enough how to be good people. You don't tell people enough to do the right things. You don't tell people enough to stay away from bad things. Okay, well, I have done that. I've told you to be kind to one another. I've told you to be gracious with one another as God has been gracious with you. What more do you want me to do? Okay, I'm doing it here, and I'm going to do it Monday, apparently. I'm running out of time. Be putting on. This is the middle voice. How do I know? Because in the concordant version, it's got this beautiful little circle on top of it with a dot. I would show you this, but it's too small. You're not going to be able to see it. I can't see it without my glasses. That's why I have them on. Be putting away all these things. Middle voice. What is the middle voice? I'm glad you asked. In the back of the Concordant Literal New Testament, you got to get this because it has all these study helps. It explains to you the form of the verbs. There's a state form, there's the fact state form, there's the fact form, the act form, and there's the voices. The middle voice is what we're considering here. I'll close with this. English, and I'm reading this from the supplemental material in the Concordant Literal New Testament, which is a very good study guide. You need this. You need this. It's very simple. It's very short. It gives you critical ways to understand what you're reading and to practice laws of language. I'm a big champion of that. English has two voices. The active, where the subject does the action himself, such as I testify, and the passive, where the subject is acted upon. It is testified. I don't like those examples. I think there are better ones, but I'm reading from here, so... But the Greek has three voices. Oh, the lovely Greek. Two's not enough for them. Active. I do it. Passive. It was done to me. No, not good enough for those Greeks. They Add a third voice, the middle voice. In the middle voice, the subject is affected. The subject is affected more or less by the action. So the subject is affected. The subject is not actively doing it. The subject is not completely passive, but the subject is in the picture, but it's affected by the action. Its force varies greatly so that it sometimes seems to be passive or active. As this voice can seldom be given any consistent English equivalent, the forms of the middle voice are always followed by the special sign, a circle with the dot in the middle. And that's what we're dealing with here. So when Paul says be putting away, he's not telling them to do it directly, or he would undo everything he has told them and everything I've told you via Paul in these last 2 weeks. And he's not telling them you just sit there and don't do anything and these things will go away. There's something where you're involved, but it's not active, it's not passive. It's Deaden then. It's coming to this realization. It's actively thinking. It's putting them away by coming to a realization of the truth that Christ has dealt a death blow to the whole guilt sin operation. The death blow has been done. The chicken has had his head cut off. And I was going to tell you how Paul dealt with his chicken, but I can't even title this show that now, because I'm at the end of the show. I can't title it that. So on Monday, we're going to see how Paul deals with his chicken, but I guess I was just whetting your appetite, didn't realize, because I'm going to have to name this show something else, because we're talking about the middle voice, and this has to do with a realization of what has already happened. Not a sexy show. Can't apologize for that, though, because this is necessary teaching. You are hardcore, people. You are hardcore. You're hanging on with me. I'm hanging on. And on Monday, we're going to find out what Paul does with that crazy chicken and what we can do with our chicken that is still touring the barnyard of this old life.